Phil.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
How you doing, brother?
Really good, man.
That's awesome.
Dude, it's been a really long time since we've talked. But yeah, I'm doing really good. I don't know if you know, but I got married.
I was about to try and beat you to the punch on that. I heard you got married. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That is, fucking congrats, man. That's so cool. Yeah. So Justin had barely mentioned, you might have heard it in the podcast, but he was like, yeah, it was Mike's wedding one day. And then like the very next day I'm out there at Kevin's wedding. I'm like, that's so fucking cool. So yeah, man, congratulations. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Thanks. So yeah, that's like the big cool new thing. It's only like 3 months old. So
yeah,
still excited. Yeah.
That's good. Did you guys do a honeymoon or anything like that?
No, not yet.
No.
I mean, we did like a little trip through the Southwest.
Yeah.
And we did some camping and stuff like that. But that was really just like on the drive back from our wedding back to California. We just took the long route and stayed a few days. So we're planning on doing something in a year.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Europe. But yeah, not yet.
That's awesome, man. So where are you guys living at? You're still in California?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, we haven't talked in person or even online in a good while. So I just try and keep up as much as I can, Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. And sometimes it's like you catch like highlight reels. It's like, oh fuck yeah, Kevin got married. Oh, it's like yeah. Every 5 years you catch a major event, on the Instagram. So no, man, congrats on that. And, yeah, that's exciting. That's super, super exciting. So, yeah, dude, thank you so much for being on. I've really been actually looking forward to this all week. And then oddly enough, I told Tommy and he was like, oh, fuck yeah, dude. He's like, that's going to be such a great episode. I'm like, well, thanks for setting the bar, man. You kind of fucked me up. So now I have to put up or shut up, I guess, as far as, recording this show with you. But, so what have you been up to, man? Like I said, I kind of catch glimpse and are you still fighting or?
No, man, I had my last fight like a year ago.
Gotcha.
And then I transitioned out of that into coaching. And now I'm doing more like strength and conditioning, personal training, and then teaching new kids how to fight.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I mean, there's a multitude of things there that kind of I can imagine that led to that. But okay, let's just I've been thinking about this all week So I would say, arguably, you come from the nicest mother and father on the planet. Like they are two of the most kind-hearted people I've ever met. Every time I see them, like both, I legit give them a real visceral hug. And it's like, man, I love you two people as human beings. You're great. So how, and knowing you and your brother and your sister, like you guys are, I wouldn't, if I saw any of you in a crowd, I would be like, nope, not a fighter, super cool guy. Fuck yeah, I would party with him. So how do you go from being raised like that and kind of having that demeanor that you kind of walk through in life to wanting to or enjoying the art of whether it be martial arts, MMA, or basically, punching somebody in the face? Like what kind of got you into the mixed martial arts world?
Yeah, well, I mean, me and Ryan both got into it. He's a jiu-jitsu brown belt now. So it was something that just like captured both of us when we were young. And I think it's just like, it's little steps at a time. Like my dad was always really into like Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. So those were the movies that we were raised up on. And then me and Ryan were always like fighting with each other. So we got put into Kung Fu when we were really young. And then that turned into Pee Wee wrestling. And it just went step by step. We were always into martial arts. And then for me, it just developed into the MMA game. And then he went the more jiu-jitsu route. But like for me, like fighting and competing and doing all this stuff, it was never about having any anger or anything like that. I know that's the case with a lot of guys, and I do train with a lot of guys who started at least as a way to like purge frustration and anger.
Sure.
But yeah, man, for me, like if you look at people like Bruce Lee or like any of like the like Muhammad Ali or any of like the old kind of like ninjas, the samurais, that they're not overtly aggressive or angry people. And it was something that I wanted to just like find out about myself, I guess. I don't know if you remember back in the day when we were at parties in high school and stuff like that, and scraps would always break out. Yeah. That was always something that I just found super fascinating. Like not in an angry way, not in anything like that. Just I wanted to do it to find something out about myself. So I was always drawn to like the little party scraps and stuff like that. Even if I wasn't involved, which a lot of times I wasn't, it was interesting just to watch like the human interaction, the dynamics that happen around fights. And then, yeah, man, like once you start getting into it, and it is a little bit like that Fight Club quote where he's like, how much you really know about yourself if you've never been in a fight?
Yeah.
And you can know plenty about yourself if you've never been in a fight, but definitely like it brings up emotions, and it's a way of like going deep into yourself and figuring out how you handle high pressure situations, very scary situations, physical assaults, all stuff like that. And when I was young, man, I always kind of considered myself as a tough guy. And then, not an angry guy, just tough. Sure. I could handle myself. And then, I walked into a jiu-jitsu studio and I got tapped over and over and over again. And then I walked into MMA and I got the shit kicked out of me over and over and over again. And I was like, all right, so either one of two things is going to have to happen. I got to stop telling myself that I can handle myself and that I'm a tough guy, and I have to just like deal with that. Yeah. Or I have to start training and actually like commit myself to this until I become, till I feel comfortable telling myself that.
Sure. Still. Yeah. You started like the reality of, what you're telling yourself, that mantra in your head started meeting reality, and you're like, okay, either I'm going to succumb this bullshit, or it's going to beat my ass over and over and over again. So that's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. Dude. And I saw that all the time, man, like, especially in Durango, not even so much here, but in Durango, the martial arts studio was right down the street from Hilltop, the halfway house. Yeah. So we would always get like fresh out of jail convicts that had the exact same thing. They told themselves that they were tough, partly because they were just in jail, and they'd come down to the dojo and want to fight right away. And all that we would do. Do you remember a girl named Nico Montano? It was Steve Hanna's girlfriend at the time. Yeah. She ended up becoming the first 125-pound UFC champ. Yeah. But she was a beast even back then. And so we would sick her on these guys. And you could see the, like, exactly what you said, like what they have in their head doesn't match reality anymore because they just gotten the shit kicked out of them by a girl half their size. Yeah. Yeah. And I can see that.
Like, no, I'm not throwing shade on any female fighter, but yeah, to come in as a 200-pound man to just get murdered by a tiny little woman, and she's a sweetheart, but she knows what she's doing. So I can imagine that's a blow to the ego and a shock to reality, so.
Yeah, and it challenges a lot of assumptions that they have about themselves. And you could see the guys who would make excuses for why that happened and then leave and never come back. And it was like they protected themselves from that reality, and then they could go home and they could continue telling themselves that they're actually a tough guy or whatever. Sure. And then you saw other people who dealt with that reality and were able to come back more and more and get their ass kicked for a year until their the reality on the outside matched the reality on the inside. Sure. Or whatever. But those are the guys that I always liked. It takes you see whose ego is fragile and who can be shown, you see whose ego is super fragile in those situations.
Yeah. So, when you started out Durango martial arts, did you know kind of when you got into it that you wanted to kind of take it to the next level of like professional fighting, or was it just something, like you said, that was interesting to you and like you were getting your ass kicked and you wanted to stop getting your ass kicked, like on the mats, or was there something that was in the beginning, at least, was there something that told you something like you can go further than right here with this group of guys, this coach, these mentors and things, like, or was it just plain and simple, or what was that for you?
No, that built up over time. Like a lot of people look at fighting and it looks intense. And it is, but like you get there one small kind of understandable step at a time. And so like, I didn't walk in thinking that I was going to try and make a career out of it or anything. Sure. I just walked in and I was like, all right, I'm going to hit some mitts. I'm going to learn how to grapple. And then once you start getting pretty good at that, the coach grabs you. He's like, all right, I want you to come into general sparring. You're like, all right. Then you get your ass kicked for a while, and that's scary for a while. Then you start getting good in that room, and it stops being scary. And then coach grabs you, and he's like, all right, I want you to help me get the fight team ready because you're good enough now. So, and then you start sparring with all the fighters, and you're like, you start getting your ass kicked again, and that's scary again. And then after a while, you start holding your own against the fighters, and that stops being scary. And then coach is like, you want to fight? And now it's been a few years. You're very comfortable in it. That seems like a small next step. And then next thing you know, you're fighting and you have a few fights under your belt, and then you go pro. And it's a road that I got sucked down that I didn't. Yeah, I definitely didn't go into it with the intention of like trying to make a career out of it when I first started. It was just, I liked martial arts, and that's all it was.
Yeah. So when did you, obviously, how many pro fights did you have, Kev?
11.
So what was your record, if you don't mind me asking?
8-3.
8-3. That's not so bad.
No, the last couple guys that I fought were like I went up one weight class and I fought a kid named Askar, and he kicked the shit out of me.
Yeah.
It was a weight class up, and he got a UFC contract off of his win against me. And then the next kid that I fought was fresh out of the UFC, and that was another scrap. And I ended up losing that one too. So, but yeah, so it just, I hit this threshold of kids that were like, there's what's one thing going pro. And then it's another thing when you start to get to the level where the kids are right around UFC level. That's Sure. when it gets scary.
Yeah. I mean, cause it's the real deal. I mean, I can't imagine I don't know anything about it, but you're going into it. And some of these kids are legit, maybe fighting for a different lifestyle, and they're coming in there with a different mentality of, like I have to kill this guy in the ring to be able to get to the next meal. Maybe that's not everybody. And I'm not trying to speak out of turn here, but I would think that at some point in time, that's a real reality, especially like a guy that just got demoted, or maybe he lost his contract and he's got to work himself back into the UFC where the potential real money could be, whether he was ever going to get to that real money or not. It's like he's legit at that point fighting for his life or a lifestyle. I can imagine, right?
Yeah, and that mentality, you're right. It wasn't everybody. I stood in front of most pros, and the mentality was a little bit more like it was a competition.
Sure.
Which is intense, but it can be friendly. And, I only stood in front of 2 people that had the mentality that you're talking about, where it was like they were starving and I was standing in between them and their food. And that was a much different mentality. And it's an intense thing to be standing in front of somebody that's trained and scary and jacked and has that mentality where you can tell that if they could, they would kill you. They're trying to hurt you as much as possible. And that's sort of what everybody's trying to do. But there's a mentality difference in some of those kids. Yeah,
it's got to be a difference. So, I mean, and you I don't know if it's just a common term, but like you do say, so how old are you now?
35.
Oh, you're getting old when you have to fucking think. You're fucked, Kev. Dude. You are fucked, dude. Yeah. Just remember how old your wife is, and just always chip a couple notches back low.
27,
yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, there you go, all day.
Yeah.
So the other thing, I mean, you're saying kids, and so I can imagine that's a real reality of, I was just looking at I'm a huge Canelo fan, and that the Triple G Canelo fight's happening right now, the trilogy, and it's probably someone is gonna win, and I'm rooting for my guy. We'll see what happens, but I was just looking, and I think Canelo's 34, and I'm like, fuck, he's a baby. And like, I remember like growing up and watching him, and I didn't realize I was older than him. I was like, if he loses, he's got age against him. And I'm like, and I started looking, I'm like, oh dude, he's a pup, and he's got 67 fights under his belt. He's 34 and he's in his fighting prime. And I'm like, that might be the case with boxing. And I'm not saying boxing is less or worse than MMA, but, I can't imagine the life expectancy of a career MMA fighter is beyond 30 on average.
No, I mean, it can last a little bit longer than that. And I think now you're starting to see people last a little bit longer because we have such advances in how to train, how to recover, how to not get injured, all that shit, where people in the past were just like hitting it hard until they broke. And then when they broke, they retired. And now it's not so much like that. So you are seeing people last kind of late into their 30s, but still, it's a very like if I was making money, I could still fight for another couple of years if that's really what I wanted to do. But I'm still pretty old as a fighter. Yeah, there's no one really in the MMA world that's lasting very much over 40. There's a couple people, but not a lot.
Yeah. So I mean. So you got those last two fights, both losses. You're getting into maybe an age bracket where you were at the level because you were fighting. What was that last organization you were fighting with? LFL or something?
No, I was fighting with the LFA and then Cage Warriors.
Cage Warriors. Okay, all right. I can remember. So I mean, you got those things stacking against you. Maybe I don't know if that's weighing on you mentally, but what was that like? That point. Was it the last fight that just you knew, or did you know like after you finished it when you were like, this is different. I don't want it. Like this isn't. I don't need to chase this dream or this goal anymore. Like I'm good. Like was it that last fight that kind of pretty much nailed in the coffin?
No, it was always something that I was curious about, and I was like, all right, let me see what I can do with this. But I never had like a crazy drive to become the best in the world or to like beat the world or anything. It was always, I was doing martial arts more to figure myself out. Like I wanted to be secure in myself in a way where I could stand in front of another scary man half naked in front of a bunch of people and not feel insecure about myself or not get too scared, still handle myself bravely. All those things I was really trying to figure out about myself. As far as like, I mean, it would have been cool to make a bunch of money doing it, but that was never really the goal. It was all more just, like self-exploration.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine. That's a brutal way to self-explore, to be honest with you, Kev. That feels like a very painful way to like go hit a bag. Maybe it doesn't hit you back in the face so much.
It's not the same. Like what you find out about yourself is like, it's hard to find out the deep stuff about yourself if you're living life on the surface. Like you got to take yourself into those intense experiences to find out what's way down deep inside you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely true. I mean, I can't speak to it from a fighting aspect by any means, but you do have to kind of go there to come here, and a lot of things like you've got to fail, you've got to land on your ass, you've got to, to kind of take it on a side note, like if it's like a sobriety thing, most people won't get sober if they need to get sober until they hit absolute fucking rock bottom. Whether it's a loss of a friend or a loss of damn near losing their own lives, but like you got to go there to come here. So I can imagine like, I just, me personally, I might have picked a better way of finding out who I am a little bit over getting punched in the face over and over and over for 15 years. But,
oh dude, for sure, man. But it's that weird thing of like, you can't really choose your interests. It's like, martial arts was something that grabbed me. Like music grabbed you, climbing grabbed Mike, and acting grabbed Mike. Like, you kind of like go around the world and then you try different things and you can't really help what grabs you. And for some reason, fighting just ever since I was young, even before I started really training, had my interest like nothing else for a reason that I can't explain.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I fully agree with that. That's you cannot, and you don't know when, and you can't define what's going to reach up and like just give you the bug where you're just,
Yeah.
you know, and it's weird for me too. Like I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like, you know, you said that like music grabbed me, and it did. It was the forefront of my life for the better part of a decade or longer. And I would quit any job at any time to do anything that could potentially give me that, like, that buzz, like playing a show or recording something or doing whatever. And it's weird to kind of have that fall from your life, that thing you love. And then, you know, maybe it comes back in from time to time or whatever. But for me personally, like with the music, that's a weird deal because I'm still writing music with those guys. It's all remote and there's no intentions about it. We're just writing music and we're releasing it. If anybody listens, fucking cool. If not, I could care less. It doesn't matter. My enjoyment is writing music with those 3 other individuals. But I have a weird love hate with music right now. I 110% do not listen to the kind of music that we're writing. And it's a weird like mental block for me because like those 3 individuals are still very much into, they enjoy that kind of music. They listen to it. It's what they're into. I don't listen to that music ever. The only time I listen to that style of music is when we're creating it. And it's because like that creation moment gives me a little bit of that bug that I used to have, you know? And it's like, that's what's fun. That music is irrelevant to me anymore. Like my life has changed in, you know, 100 different ways. And so it's like, it's a weird deal. It's like, but I fully understand that you can't control when something picks you up and lets you down as far as like, whether it's creative or whether it's martial arts or climbing or acting, you know, whatever. It's just, and that's kind of how I feel a little bit with this podcast. And I've had so many close friends be like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, and I'm like, I like it, you know, and they're like, well, does it make money? I'm like, fuck no, it doesn't make money. Like, no, I'm paying more.
Yeah, you're going to do just everything that you do is aimed at making money, and you're not going to do it if it doesn't make money. That's fucking boring.
Let's check all these boxes. Oh no, it's like no, like we're paying money to do this, but for me, it's like it's good, you know, because I get to talk to people that I want to talk to. Nobody controls this. It's an open-ended platform, and I can talk about whatever the fuck I want to. Like I just got off the phone or off of an interview with an ICU nurse that's managing a hospital that rode through COVID and is like, you know, and that was so interesting to me. And like, we could have talked for 3 hours about, you know, all kinds of crazy shit she saw, you know, but, people have like good friends have been like, what are you doing? Like, what is this for? And I'm like,
no way.
I'm like, dude, this is for nothing. This is for me selfishly talking to people that I want to talk to and getting something out of it. Like it's the bug. It's the bug, man. I mean, here we are. It's 10 o'clock my time, you know, 9 your time. And I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Let's drink some beers and talk. You know, it's weird. So yeah, you cannot control when something like grabs you by the balls, so to speak. And is like, I want to do this. Like, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. That is fucking irrelevant. But like the moment of it is like, oh, that's the heat, that's the fire. And you know, as long as I'm in it, like doing this podcast thing, I think I'm enjoying it. So, you know, it's
good, man. Yeah, dude. And there's a lot of like mental stimulation. Like there's a lot of juice in having long conversations with interesting people that don't view the world the same as you and have different experiences and all that shit.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy too. Cause, sorry, when I first started this is like, so I do real estate as my profession. That's how I make a living. And it was kind of like, well, we could interview a bunch of like real estate people and like our investors and like, you know, it's going to be this and, you know, we could use it as a write-off and all this, you know, creative financing bullshit. Right. And then it's like, I emailed like 40 people that I was like, I'd love to have you on. And like, it was crazy. Like the first person to reach out was Justin, you know, and like, he's like, yeah, I'll be on. And I'm like, all right, cool. Here's the link. And I'm thinking he's on tour. He's doing whatever. Like it'll be a couple months out. Boom. It's like tomorrow we're recording. I'm like, oh fuck. Like, all right, here we go.
Damn.
You know? And so And then another buddy like reached out. It was like back to back. And then those 2 episodes were recorded. They were so different from each other. And then the third guest and then the fourth and the fifth, now, you know, we're into the teens on recording. No one is the same. Like, and it's kind of taken this weird life of its own. It's, you know, it's like, it's very eclectic, and the conversations keep me inspired, you know? And it's like, I would get so bored if I was talking to like an investor, and then tomorrow I'm talking to this kind of investor, and then I'm talking to this real estate agent. And it's like, no, it's like, I want this to be different. And, you know, it's growing legs on its own. Like, for me, it will probably never make money, and that's fine. I don't care about that, because for me, it's just like, it's inspirational to hear like certain things from certain people. And then like, it's crazy to talk yesterday to this person who's like, you know, doing whatever they're doing, and then talk to you and be like, you know, let's talk fight game for a night. Like, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. So it's been cool, man. I'm, you know, hopefully people enjoy it. If they don't, at the end of the day, it's really not for anybody else other than me and hopefully the guest I'm talking to, you know?
Well, dude, I've been listening. Like, I listened to Justin's, and you said you talked to Mike. I'm excited to listen to that too. I haven't seen that one yet, but dude, I mean, even just for me, like, you're talking to like a lot of the old crew that I haven't got to see for a while. And I'm loving that aspect of it, man. And I've been listening to you, and like, you have a really nice, like, voice for this, and you don't like interrupt a lot. Like, you don't say, like stuff like that. Like, I don't know, for me, cause I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like, I like your style. You have a good voice for this.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. I really appreciate that, man. It's, it honestly has been a pleasure, and I felt bad the other day, and there's a couple, 2 or 3 episodes before this one airs. You know, I got super sick there for a second, and, it wasn't COVID. All you naysayers, fuck off. But, I did get really sick. And so I was in like recovering the next week, and I had 2 shows that had been rescheduled. And so I had to go into them, but like, I had this like weird brain fog, like it was head cold, and I wasn't there. And I've gone back and listened to both episodes, and they're okay. But then I had like the third week, right, having like post cold, I went in and did an episode with a guy, and it was banger, and it was boring topic, right? But it was like boom, 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 rapid fire, and it felt so good that I was like, man, I almost want to reach out to these 2 guests prior to see if they want to re-record, because like, I feel like if I don't give 110% to a guest, like, I'm doing a disservice, even if it's a buddy, you know. It's like, you know, it's like, nah, like they're spending an hour and a half. Like, we did, the second episode was 2.5 hours, you know, and we're just chopping it up on some crazy shit. But it's like, I got to be present for that person, you know? And so it's like, I don't know. We're not going to re-record those episodes, but still the mindset for me to be like a little bit of a perfectionist is kind of there in this thing. And so it's like, I'm doing it with my heart. I'm doing it with passion. I'm trying to make sure that I'm honoring the guests and their small segment that they get to be on the show, and then also what we produce out to the world. So hopefully it doesn't fall on deaf ears, because I think that everybody's got something to talk about that, you know, it's like, especially with you, like as big as MMA is, like, now and probably will be for the foreseeable future. Like, there's a lot of kids out there that are going into it with a completely different mentality, I can imagine, than you. Like, not trying to gain an experience, not trying to get self-fulfillment. They're going into it angry, and they're like, I'm going to be the fucking best ever. And that works for somebody, you know, for some people. But I mean, if they can hear like your story and say like, all right, you know, maybe it's not about like the glory of it all. Maybe it is about like self-fulfillment and like helping me go on this path to whatever that is, you know. Like, I mean, you know, seeing you now, like, I saw you working with a kid the other day, and I was, you know, and having not talked to him, like, what is Kevin doing? Is, you know, he's still fighting, but, you know, I think that there's a way for people to hear these little things, even if it's a couple of different people, that they can grasp onto that and be like, well, there's reality behind that, you know, like there's truth in what this guest is saying. And so we'll see where it goes, man. But I do have a few more questions for you. And, partly Tommy put this in my head. And so shout out Tommy Wright. I love that guy. He's the production engineer on the back of this. But so I've always wondered this, because when we were growing up, like I won't like sugarcoat this at all, but you were a fucking baller snowboarder. Like so I'm horrible. I'm still horrible. Always, I can go down the mountain with you guys. I can haul ass. Tricks are not my gig. Like I just roll. Here we go. I'll meet you at the bottom. We'll get hot cocoa. But I mean, you were notches above, levels above everybody we rode with. And I knew that took you to a certain level, to at one time where I think either you were sponsored or you were pro or potentially going pro at that. Is that? I
was semi-pro, and also like I had some family help. My dad's side of the family is involved in like my uncle sets up the like the Nippon Open and a lot of European competitions, stuff like that. So he has inroads into that community. So I had a little bit of help there, but yeah, that was my path for a while. And yeah. So what's your question?
Yeah, no. So my question, I mean, so like we, I think all of us, like the Baytown boys, like we'll call it, right? Like we've kind of all come in and out of each other's lives, right? So it's like, I knew you at that juncture. I knew that you went overseas for a while and you came back, and I'm just trying to kind of fill some of the voids for me. So it's like, did you get to a point or a level in snowboarding where you stopped loving it to where you didn't want to do it? Or it was just like what was that? Like what brought you back here after that? Because I remember that was a big, I mean, like we all talk, we all know like, oh dude, Kevin's, going overseas. He's like, right. He's like, so what was that?
Yeah, I mean, that was an opportunity to go compete. And same thing, man, like I've always used this kind of stuff. Like, I think when I was young, I didn't really know it, but like as a way to develop myself, like, like you can be on this earth for 50 years and sit in your room, or you can try and do a bunch of shit. And just in the doing of shit, you'll develop in different ways. And so that brought me the opportunity of one, like high level competition, but then also like a lot of travel. Like I was able to go to Germany and Switzerland. Those were really the main two areas that I got to go ride. And then when I went over there, I was competing with like high level pros, and I got my ass kicked constantly. I placed in one competition, and it gave me enough money to like stay over there and do the rest of the trip. But yeah, man, I just went over there and got whooped. But
sorry, I didn't mean to bring up like bad blood. If it was like, oh, this is horrible, and we're like, yeah,
no, not at all. No, I don't know. Like I went over there and I did that, and then I came back because I was only supposed to be out there for the snowboard season anyway.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I came back, and then I was like, all right. Kind of like MMA kind of hit me after a while. I was like, all right, I've been doing this for like 15 years. It was cool. And I still like snowboarding, for fun. But I was like, all right, let's shift gears, see if anything else. And that was kind of the time that I started getting really into kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and doing that stuff too. And I was like, all right, this is definitely grabbing me more than snowboarding is right now. And I've always been pretty open to just like, all right, this is what's grabbing me now. I'm going to go follow that, see where it takes me. After a while, something else grabs me. I'll switch directions.
Yeah.
I've never been like glued to anything specific.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of fluid with it. I mean, and I can see that. Yeah. I was just curious, man. I didn't know if it was like something where, you just kind of fell out of love with it. Or if it just got to that point where it was like, in your head, like it just, this isn't it, like whether you're telling yourself like in the mirror in the morning, or it's just like one of those things, like it's just thumping on your shoulder. Like, hey, it's time to get the fuck out. Like, let's go elsewhere,
Yeah, no, it wasn't really that. It was just, forever I always kind of thought that I wanted to make my living in the snowboarding world, whether it was setting up competitions or competing myself or whatever it was. And then I just got grabbed by the martial arts world and wanted to be fucking Bruce Lee. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this instead.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll get back into the martial arts, man, because that's I think what this podcast is more trying to focus on. But I was curious about that. But I don't know if we talked, Kev, or if it was something, I might have seen it on Instagram, or maybe I was talking to one of the friends or something. But but I thought it was maybe you and I talking or emailing, but were you developing or are you in the process of developing like a virtual MMA training app or something? Or did I just have this wild dream? Was that real?
No. That was real, but it didn't pan out. I was it wasn't even my idea. Like, I moved out to California with a girl that I was dating at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she was really tech savvy and it was her idea. But while we were setting it up, like, me and her as a relationship were like falling apart. It was not good. And so it kind of got set up. But by the time it was set up, I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to work with her. I didn't want to work on the internet. Cause honestly, like, I'm not a sit in front of the computer guy. So that was starting to bum me out, being in front of the computer that much. And I was like, wasn't for me. So I scrapped the whole thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
And now I'm still setting up something else. I'm setting up something because I have a bunch of clients and I end up having the same conversations with all of them, which is like, when they're with me in the gym, they're after their health, right? They're like, they want to lower their blood pressure, gain some muscle, gain some functional mobility, all the stuff that people want when they go to a gym, get sexier. But when they're not in the gym, they have no idea what to do. They don't know how to eat. And this isn't everybody, but this is a large portion of my clientele. They don't know how to eat to keep themselves healthy. They don't know how to eat before training so they feel good during training. They don't know how to eat after to recover from training. They don't know how to pattern themselves so they fall asleep easily. So I'm setting up something new online to help these guys where they can just like shoot me questions and I can work with them on all the habits that they need to reach what they want to reach when they're not in that gym with me for that 1 hour a day.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty awesome. I mean, I kind of, that seems like a very practical, like method to it. You know, it's just like, cause I mean, I don't know how people do it. Like, I don't physically know how people have enough time sometimes to get to the gym. Like I am the worst, Kev. Like, I mean, I will go from like 110% workout. I'll like drop this weight and then all of a sudden like life does this crazy curveball and then I come back into it and like, you know, or some stupid ass accident, you know, but I don't like, I see you in the gym and it pisses me off because I'm mad at myself. Like 110%. I'm like, fuck you, Kevin. Like, here you are again. Like you're doing this again. Like, man. And, but it is inspirational because it's a kick in the ass to see somebody else like do that. But, getting back to the point of what, you know, your situation is like, I think that's great because it's a bit of a reminder to people, but also too, it's like life does happen. Like things happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so they've got the ability to kind of go back and have that personal, you know, as personal as it can be, like a reminder type situation that you're building for them. I think that will yield huge results for a person because like all you really need sometimes is that kick in the ass. Right. And so it's like, especially on those days, like where maybe life truly is like, hey, I don't have 15 minutes to get down there and do this or 45-minute session, whatever you do, but I've got a few minutes to like do a reminder and then I can go in my living room on a yoga mat or I can go in the garage or whatever. So that's cool. How far out are you guys on that?
Man, luckily, cause like I said, I'm not a computer guy. Mm-hmm. Luckily I have a buddy that's helping me out with building out the website. So that's a better question for him. I'm just laying back, letting him do his thing until he's like, "Yo, it's ready to go."
You're the face of the product, man. I get it. Sometimes you just got to be that smile and the punch in the face guy. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I know what I want out of it, but I have no idea how to get it done.
For sure. So, do you think you'll ever fight again or no?
Maybe, but if I do, it would be because it's interesting, not because of any like monetary opportunity or anything like that.
Sure.
Like those were always pretty small anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm not like, I'm kind of past the point of like fighting up and coming killers.
That sounds brutal. Like just the talk earlier about like this guy that just got booted out of the UFC is trying to get back. And I'm like, oh, sounds like a fucking murderer.
Dude, yeah. And there's like shit that goes on that like people don't really think about. Like a big one is when you're getting ready for a fight and you're backstage, like a lot of people don't think about this when you're at the beginning of the card. Like curtains go up, you walk out, you fight, it's over, and then you sit back and you watch the rest of the fights. But it gets weirder and weirder as you move to the top of the card. So like you're like one of the last fights, or maybe you're the main event or something like that. Is like, because what happens is they'll take the first kids out, and then the kid that's in your corner comes back to the same area, and maybe he's won, and so he's all jacked up and whatever. But like you have all these people coming back with different energies. Some people win. Some people are so fucked up that the EMTs have to come back there and like stitch their face up. Some people are throwing up because they've been overloaded with adrenaline. And this is just happening like, 1 to 10 times in a row until it hits you. And there's people laying all over the floor, like needing to go to the hospital or bleeding all over the place. And then they're like, all right, you're up. And you're like, all right, fuck.
Here we go. Block all the bad energy out with the good.
Exactly.
Oh, dude.
None of this matters. Let me just step over you.
That does sounds like some legit Bruce Lee. What is the one where he like? Dude, I'm sorry. Like all I can imagine is like a horrible Bruce Lee movie where there's just like massive bodies everywhere, or like Mortal Kombat, where it's like, all right, this person died. This guy's still around. He's over here smoking cigars with like, Ray-Bans on. And so, that sounds horrible, man. That's,
it's not horrible, man. Well, it's kind of horrible, but it's not just horrible. It's also exciting, and you get an opportunity to like in your own standards, like act bravely, right? Like the scarier the shit is around you, and the more you can steady yourself and breathe through it and go do it anyway, the prouder of yourself you get to be on the other end.
Yeah. I can imagine that. That seems like, I don't know. I'd probably have to have like a mirror in front of me and just like talk, like look at my weird eyes and just talk. Like, you ever do that? Like, I mean, like maybe I'm the only weirdo on the planet, but like I will find myself like, if I'm in a weird headspace, and Simone's caught me a couple of times. Like I'll be in the the master bath, just doing this like coaching session, like, not like the class, like you're not a piece of shit, you are worthy. Like I don't do that, but I'll be like, just looking at myself and in my head, like nothing out loud, but I'll just be like just reeling through some things that are happening. And like, and it is in the head a little bit like, you are better than this. Like you're bigger than this. Like you're like, or what the fuck are you doing? Like, fix your shit, that weird, like kind of mental mantra switch that you got to do. Like you are brave, you are strong, you are a good father, you are, whatever you got to check through, like all the boxes. And like, I've caught myself at the end of it a couple times. Like I'll be like almost squinting. Like, who is this motherfucker? like trying to like square up with yourself, but I think that's, you got to do that though. Sometimes, I think you capitalize on it in this conversation. It's like, you got to go there to come here. Sometimes you got to find out what you're made of, so to speak. So
I've definitely done that. And there's a thing that I was doing in the beginning of anybody getting into this that wants to fight, like something that I think people do. I definitely did this in the beginning, was you make the mistake of turning your opponent into a monster and like in your head, and then you stay a human. So it's you, a human, versus a monster that you've made up in your head. And something that I've learned to do over the course of competition is keep them a human and start to view myself more as a monster. So now it's still a human versus a monster, but it's more like they're locked in there with me, a monster, as opposed to, fuck me, a human has to go get locked in there with them, a monster.
Yeah. That's a wild way to look at it for sure. It's like you're almost...
That's just like mental tricks. Like it's such a mentally intense situation. You got to come up with your own mental tricks that work for you. I've never seen anybody that can just handle it without having to hype themselves up or talk to themselves in the mirror or go like revert to gallows humor when everybody around them is needing to go to the hospital, or everybody has their own mental tricks.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean that's definitely a way to kind of bring it. Yeah, man, I try to put myself into that frame of thought there for a second, but like every time I think about like I just, yeah. So yeah, I'm talking about a story of me having a bad day and like coaching myself in a mirror and like, then I'm going, all right, take that. And then be like, you're going to go either get punched a lot in the face or you're going to go punch this guy in the face, and like, I'm like, there's no correlation here, Kyle. There's like,
yeah. And not only that, you got to get mostly naked before you do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got to go do it on stage in front of a crowd that's going to boo the shit out of you or just wants to see your blood or, they're going to make you super self-conscious before you do this.
Yeah, for sure. It's very, I was just talking to somebody the other day about this. It's very gladiator-esque. It's everybody's watching from the circle in the middle and they want to see blood. And even if you're the best fighter, I think there's so much controversy right now going on with, Adesanya, it's like he's very much like that Anderson Silva was, a decade ago, where it's like he's so good he's not getting touched, but his longevity in his career is probably going to outlast anybody. But everybody remember when they turned on Silva, when it was just like, dude, you're not getting punched, you're so fucking good, and it was like Dana was getting mad at him, like he couldn't sell a card because if he ended it too quickly or if he made it go longer, but he didn't get punched and and then so Adesanya's in the same boat. It's like, everybody's like, you're a bitch, dude. You never get punched. I'm like, is he a bitch or is he just better? Like, is he better than his opponent? And it's like that twist to me is weird. And I know that has a lot to do with like selling cards and like the bigger grand scheme balloon of UFC and MMA fighting, right? Or whatever organization, you've got to sell cards. And it's not entertaining to people anymore, though. If they don't see blood and guts, they're like, this fight was shit. I'm like,
yeah, it's a little bit like Mayweather, where he's really good at not getting hit. But the thing that annoys me about that shit is like the people that say, oh, you're not even getting punched, bro, aren't even fighting.
Yeah.
They're armchair fucking, I don't know what you call it. They're like armchair experts.
Yeah, they're a freaking Monday morning coach, right?
Yeah, exactly. They haven't competed. Yeah. They don't step in there. Shut the fuck up.
They've been assessing fights for about 15 years, and they've never been punched. It's like, I would say like, dude, that would be the biggest card on the planet. All right, okay, all of the commentators, maybe not Joe Rogan, right? Or, Cormier, right? They know how to fight. If you're a commentator or a YouTube enthusiast and you know, quote unquote, what the fuck you're talking about when it comes to fighting, like, why don't we invite you down? We'll have an exposition match. We'll all wear thicker gloves and let me punch you and then see how you react. Like there would be millions of pay-per-view people that would buy into that, and
because what's easy to study is the like tactics and the techniques, how this guy throws his jab, how this guy responds. All those things are they're easy to see visually. Well, what's not so easy to see is the emotions that happen, like when you eat a hard cross and your vision starts to double, or you get hit in the face and all of a sudden you start to see red dripping down your eye and you know that you're cut and you're going to have to go get stitches afterwards. Yeah. And you don't know how badly you're hurt because of all the adrenaline and shit like that. Like, you might be hurt really badly, and then you go back to the corner and people are trying to dab at your eye and they're like, fuck, like I can't close this thing. And then a minute passes and they're like, all right, go fight again. And like all that shit that happens to you emotionally. Yeah. That stuff's much harder to get a read on than the tactical stuff. But the emotional stuff, that influences the tactical stuff because it makes it really hard to think. It's sort of like if you're trying to sit down and play chess, and every once in a while, out of nowhere, randomly, you get smoked in the face, and you gotta stay relaxed and try and keep playing chess. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine. Yeah, I would definitely think that. Now that you say that, like there's a few obviously commentators that are versed, or maybe they know what they're talking about. They know fighting, they know this, but yeah, you definitely shed a good light on that because, yeah, I mean, they're looking at the tactics of the fight. They're looking at they're looking at what's happening, or it should happen in that moment in time. Right. So it's like, they know that this strike should happen, or this, whatever's happening. If it's like a jiu-jitsu move, like he should have went with this cross, or he should have gone for the triangle or the arm bar or whatever. But they're not really considering all the other elements that are going to that actual fight. That's huge. Yeah, you don't really think about that because they're judging your performance and they expect you guys to be on the performance level at 110% all the time, right? Regardless of like whatever's happening on the promotion card, whatever's happening in your life, it's like when you get in that cage, they expect it to be like flawless, you know, from a judgmental standpoint, you know? So
like robotic and like emotions aren't going to play any, but I mean, that's what makes MMA so cool is because you can see people getting physically beaten and broken. And you know that they're going to have to go to the hospital afterwards, and they're still there for it. They're still brave. They're not backing down. They're not running away from the fight. They're still there for it, even though you know on the inside there's part of like there's like the there's like the child part of them or like whatever that's like fucking panicking. But they've just figured out how to deal with that and put that person in its proper place behind the bravery, behind the athleticism, all that stuff, because the fear is there in everybody.
Yeah.
It just, does that come to the forefront, and is that the thing that rules your physiology in that moment? Or can you put that behind all the other stuff that you need? Focus, bravery, all that shit. And that takes a while. And you see, especially in the amateurs, there's a lot of people who can't do that. They hit just full fight or flight mode.
Yeah. Have you, two questions. One, because I remember, I forget where it was. I'm so sorry, Kev. Like I try and keep up, you know, with your career, with what you're doing and stuff. But like, I remember there was a fight and there was a shit ton of highlight reels. And I can't remember if it was like a front kick or like a side kick. And
It was a side kick.
yes. And you knocked, and I don't know his name, but you knocked that motherfucker out. And I was like, I remember seeing that. And then it was like a good finish. And it was like, I could just see the joy in it. But like, I can't even imagine. I don't know if you can explain it, but like, what did that feel like? I mean, to win a fight is one thing, I would think, right? If it's and then I don't want to downplay like winning a fight by decision or winning a fight by rear naked choke or some other kind of crazy grappling move, but like winning a fight by like a fucking knockout. Yes, yeah. Dude. Yeah, that's right. It is way fucking cooler. It's cooler to see. It's got to be cooler to experience. Like, I mean, what, dude, can you just like, I don't even know if you have the way to describe it, but like that specific knockout, like what did that feel like to you? Like, was it? Yeah.
Well, fuck, man, I feel bad because I'm blanking on the kid's name. And he was, I think, the best kid that I've ever fought.
Really?
Yeah. He was winning until I lost. He was undefeated till he fought me. I knocked him out, but he was winning all the way until I knocked out, and he's been undefeated ever since. He's really fucking good. I've been following his career, too. He's really, really good. But, yeah, man, it was crazy because, like I said, he was winning, not by a lot, but, like, he was just very good at controlling the pace, very good at controlling the distance. And then whenever I would get like froggy and start to like edge him out in any way, he was really good at taking me down, sitting me against the cage and like stopping me.
Yeah.
And then he'd just like start edging me out again. It's like, fuck, I don't know how to get past this. And then that technique that I threw, the side kick to the head, was just like, there was no like, oh, this is the shot. This is like, I have it set up perfectly. It wasn't anything like that. It was just another technique thrown, and it just landed flush, and it surprised me as much as it surprised him.
Yeah, you could kind of see it in the highlight because it was like flop, and then it was like it was a moment. It was like you could tell like your body shifted, but like you had to see visually that it actually took. And it was like, then it was on top of him. It was like fucking lights out, guys done. But you could see, and I know they slowed, like some of the reels you put up were like, it was slowed down. So it was exaggerated. So I imagine in real life, it was like pop, boom, oh, I'm on top of him. But like seeing it, I was like, I think Kevin didn't realize he knocked this motherfucker out with that kick.
It took a second.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that was wild, man. That was really cool to see it. It was like, I know we were rooting from afar, and I was just, I can't remember if I was talking to Justin about this, but, life always happened. Like I never got to see in person an actual fight. Like you had fought in Cortez, not Cortez. Was it Cortez?
Mm-hmm.
You fought in Cortez a couple times.
Oh man, that little Indian reservation.
Toyak.
Toyak.
You had fought there once or twice. And it's weird circumstances. Like I couldn't make it to the fight. I know my brother made it to a couple, and I never got to see you, in person. But I went back, kind of prefacing this and watched that previous knockout, and it was so cool. Like, granted, I'm like hometown boy, like rooting, but I was like, man, that was fucking awesome. And like I wished I could have. That was one that like to have seen that in person, any of your fights, but to have seen that one in person, like. That was cool. That would have been super, super sweet.
That was definitely a highlight. Yeah, dude, I got my arm broken badly out in Toyak.
I was going to bring that up. That? You did. Yeah, you had to take a grip off. Yeah.
I did. About a year. I learned to grow a weed that year.
Yeah,
it was good. I mean, that year was good. But, man, it was a bummer because, like, I was living with Justin, and I had just decided, like, all right, I'm going to move out and I'm going to move in with Steve Hanna and some of the other coaches and, like, give this thing a real push. And as soon as I moved in with those guys, had that fight, got my arm broken, and was living in the house with dudes that were training constantly and was just out.
Yeah.
So that sucked. But yeah, dude, that was wild. It happened. Like I got my arm broken badly. There was a YouTube video about it for a while. I went back and tried to watch it recently. It's not up anymore. But
it was a block, right? It was like a block.
He had I've had my arm broken like that too in training, but this was an arm bar that he set on me, and I had a crack in my ulna, in my radius, I think, the little outside bone.
Yeah.
Before he put the arm bar on me, and an arm bar is supposed to hyperextend you at the elbow. And I pulled my elbow out from between his legs, and so in that scenario, you're supposed to be safe. But because I had a weak point in my bone, he just hipped into it, and it snapped both bones really badly. Oh. Like you could just see my arm just fold in half, and it was so loud I thought somebody had stepped on a stick. It was like crack, but luckily I went into shock like instantly. Like shock is pretty fucking rad. Like if you've ever been bad enough to need shock, it's pretty fucking sweet.
Oh, yeah, that's the highlight reel for this one. Shock is pretty fucking rad.
Yeah.
Did the ref stop the fight automatic, like instantaneous?
Yeah.
He saw it break, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. But it was wild because we were out on a reservation, and so it wasn't all that organized, and we were way out from Durango.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because I was in shock. I don't know if there was an ambulance there for me or what, but like I just didn't get into an ambulance. I went with Justin instead, and we just I just held my arm like this, like in my lap, trying not to like let it fold over, because as soon as it started to fold, my arm started to sag.
Oh, Jesus.
So I just so I was just in the front seat of Justin's car smoking weed with him on a 45-minute drive to the hospital with both bones broken in my left arm. It hurt.
Oh my God.
It was fucking rough.
Did you was there ever like a vindication fight with that guy? Did you ever fight him again? Who do you?
No, not with that guy.
Okay.
I had a vindication fight. It was the bloodiest fight that I've ever been in. Well, his blood. I've had bloody fights where it was my blood, but I had one fight with a kid who edged me out when we were amateurs, and it was the worst because there's certain situations where if you show up and you fight the best that you can and you get bested, that's not so bad, I don't think. But when you show up and you don't when you go to fight and you can't show up for yourself, when you're mentally I got paralysis by analysis, where I was just so stuck in my own head, and I was like, what if I do this? But then what if he does that? And then what if I do this? And what if he does that? I just didn't really do anything for the whole fight, and he ended up beating me. And that was like the one fight that like I took really hard, because I didn't get beat by somebody else. I got betrayed by something inside of myself. Yeah. And so that was hard to deal with, but I ended up fighting him when we were both early pros, and I beat the shit out of him, where it was like both my hands up to my forearms were covered in blood. And And he just like never really went away. He never really like got knocked out or really finished or anything like that. But it was just like to the point where like halfway through the second round, I was like, dude, go down, sit down. Like I was like starting to feel really bad.
It's like, just fucking stop. Oh,
yeah.
Oh God, I could imagine, dude. Jesus. It was so funny, man. Like sitting here talking to you about this, it's weird. So like I never fought or anything professionally. Like obviously yard scraps, party scraps, sure. But
dude, you were an inspiration for me back in the day.
Oh, good. Was it the time you saw me in handcuffs in the back of my fucking van? I just talked about that the other day on a podcast too. I was like, yeah, I was great inspiration for all these fucking kids, you know? So,
dude, it literally was. I actually told my wife about that earlier today.
Oh, dude, that was horrible. That guy was a dickhead though. And fuck him. He's a forest ranger and he has no jurisdiction. So kids, if you're listening, fuck those guys. No, so, I mean, I was scrappy by nature and probably maybe more so than my brother because I was raised up a little bit different. Like my dad was out of the picture for a good chunk of my, from like 10 to 13. And so I kind of had to get a little bit scrappy. So I'm just a little scrappy by nature in football and whatever and other sports that I play. But I was having a conversation with my son's coach the other day. And so like, he's super into soccer. He's really coming into his own. He is becoming a really good player. He's a student of the game, like watches whatever he can watch to be better. He's constantly practicing. Like we're out doing drills today. We're running 1.5 miles, 2 miles, 2.5 miles every day. And he wants to get better. And so I'm like, I talked to his coach the other day. I'm like, hey, what can I be doing? Like, I don't know soccer. I never played the game, but I can help somebody, calisthenics. I can run. I can do drills that you're teaching him. And so I'm like, what can I do? He's like, honestly, he's one of the best players on the team. Like, I don't think it's a fundamental, like we need him. Like he's a great player, but I don't know how you teach him to just be like more gritty, like be more aggressive. Like we wouldn't be mad if he punched a kid, like get some aggression on the field, and it was such a weird conversation with the coach. He's like, I don't mean that negatively. Like we don't want to play this like rough version of soccer, but he's like, it is an aggressive sport and it can be. And, so I was like talking to my wife and I'm like, what do we do? Like, how do we get, and he's such a soft touch kid. He's like, he's got such a great heart, a way better heart than I ever had. Like, he's like, a lover, not a fighter. Like he would gladly like try and pull a move with his legs versus like dig a shoulder in a game. And so I'm like, I'm trying to talk to him like, dude, you gotta be like, you gotta get pumped. And so it was so funny. If somebody filmed this, would be the most hilarious thing on the planet. So we're out at the soccer field the other day. And he's like, all right, Dad, how do I get angry? Or what if I get tripped and I'm angry? And I'm like, all right, dude, I used to get, if you get tripped in football or whatever, and, and you're down on the ground, like just get fucking mad, like, fuck you, and like punch the grass. And, I'm like, I'm literally out there with my son with a soccer ball, like looking like a total goofball. And I'm like, I'm punching the grass. Like as a grown man, I'm like, and I'm looking at him like, you see I get angry, like, fuck you, like, and I just like, I got up from there and we did some more laps and we finished the practice and I'm driving home and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? But it's like, I don't know how to teach a person how to be like, just inherently scrappy, like either I'm not saying that you can't grow into it, right? I mean, like if you get your ass kicked enough,
you can grow into it.
Sometime you're going to become scrappy. You're going to hit that switch where it says, I'm done getting my ass kicked, or I'm done getting taken advantage of. Like I'm going to do this, but like trying to teach somebody that like ahead of that naturally happening is very odd. Because like soccer is not a punching sport. It's like, you've got to be aggressive. These kids are aggressive back to you. You have to dig a shoulder. You've got to create distance. You've got to be scrappy. And it's like, so, we'll see. I don't know if the punching the ground method is going to actually do any good, but it was odd that that's his only downfall. Is he's good, he's talented, he understands the game, he's a student of the game, but he needs to be more scrappy. And I'm like, this is fucking soccer. Like, what the fuck?
Soccer's like, compared to like football or or MMA, it's not a very scrappy sport. But yeah, man, you still need a baseline of it. And I'd say like nothing forces development like necessity. And if it's not necessary for him to be scrappy, then he won't be. And like you and Simone have provided him with a life where he hasn't had to develop that character, which is good. That's a good thing. Like we don't want little kids having to be scrappy because they have to be. But man, something I don't know. I would say if he's open to it, anything like wrestling, anything like that for even just a season, because aggression and scrappiness, stuff like that, it's not something that you understand intellectually and then can act out. It's something to where that comes up to you when you're in, or it comes up in you when you're in a situation. It's not a thing that you get taught. It's something that you have to learn through experience.
Yeah.
And so telling him that he needs to be scrappier and stuff like that, it's only going to go so far. He needs situations where he's forced to develop that attribute.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a firm believer in that. Like, but it's weird too. Like, when you have a child, it's weird. So it's like, again, going back to my upbringing, like maybe it wasn't the best or the worst by any means, but yeah, I think there's a point of which it's not that I think that Simone or I have by any means failed our children. Like we're trying to give them the life that maybe we didn't have, and I think we're succeeding in that. But when when certain things like that come into light, and you're like, you're kind of torn because it's your child. Like you want to. There's a part of you, like as a protector, where you want to prevent that. You want to prevent them from having to experience that emotion or that tumultuous time to get through. But at the same time, you have this switch of like, inherently as a person that those times will make you hard because this world sucks. Like this world will beat your ass 9 times out of 10. And, or maybe 10 out of 10 times. And you got to get back up. You got to have that, you got to have that grit and that drive to get back up off your ass and move again. And so it's a weird deal because I feel like oftentimes, maybe it's like the age that we're at, but there's, you might know it. I mean, from the fighting mentality, it's like, there's a fable and it's like the great grandfather was a weak man. The great grandfather was a strong man. And then the father, there's the great grandfather was a strong man. The grandfather was a less strong man. The father was a weak man. The son and the child, and it's like hardened times build hard men. Better times build weak men. And it's like, and so having this conversation, I hear myself and I'm trying to teach my son how to be strong and confident, on a football field, or, I say football cause soccer, but so a soccer field. You're trying to teach somebody how to do this, but it's again, it's that hardened times that I have built me into the character that I have, which is maybe a little more rigid, but I've tried to do better by him in life, to give him a better future. But at the same time, it's there's a mental situation there where it's it could potentially be making him into a weak person, or a weak, not saying that, I don't think he's, if my son hears this, I don't think he's a weak person, but there is logical order to that. It's strong times or hard times make a strong man. Soft times make a weak man because you don't have to be strong. You don't have to go out and hunt and fight for your food. The bare fundamentals of what it is to be a man is lost if the times are not hard. So you're absolutely right. He has to be put into situations of adversity and in real life scenarios to develop the fundamental skills to quote unquote be scrappy.
Yeah. So it's hard times make hard men make soft times make soft men make hard times, and the cycle starts over.
That's what it is. Yes. So maybe my dumb self, I couldn't remember it, but I was close.
Yeah. But I mean, luckily, it's a blessing and a curse because we don't want to have to live in hard times, and we want to provide soft times for our children. And for everybody, like that's part of the reason why we work hard and we build things and stuff like that, so that we can have stability and we don't have to be so fucking hard all the time. That sucks. It's exhausting. But I'd say, like, within the context of soft times, there's still opportunities to deliberately expose yourselves to challenging scenarios. And the only problem is like, if it's not necessitated, you have to go out and you have to find it yourself. And so most people don't go out and they don't find hard things to do for themselves. They just let soft times be the soft times. But like I was saying earlier, you know, it's the hard things that force your development.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's soft times, but there's plenty of soccer, football, wrestling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you know, whatever, mountain climbing, whatever he wants to get into to challenge himself and challenge his fortitude and make him face his fears a little bit and build up his bravery. All those things are there. You just got to go looking for them a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm glad. I shouldn't say that I definitely don't hate the scenario we've created, you know, for our children, you know, there's
no, but it's like you said, man, it's like right now you're defending the borders for your children.
Yeah.
But you know that at some point in the future, your children are going to have to defend those same borders for themselves.
Yeah.
And that out of love for them, you hope that you've given them enough tools so that they can properly defend those borders and they don't crumble underneath that pressure. Or they don't get walked all over because you know, they haven't been taught to stand up for themselves or whatever the issue is. At some point, they're going to have to protect the Shire instead of you.
Yeah.
And that's always a scary proposition.
Yeah, I don't know that ever changes. Like, going back to the fable, right? It's like it's a cyclical order, you know, of trying to better one's life and better their children's scenario. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, it's like so I have a son and I have a daughter, and I would say, and Simone will tell you first and foremost that I'm not brutally hard on my son, but I'm harder on him than I am my daughter, because if I look at my daughter the wrong way, she will either blow up on me, which makes me feel like a horrible human being, or she'll start crying. And I'm like, I don't want either of these to fucking happen. So it's like, then I'll say something to my son, and I'll try and, you know, teach him something of manhood, and like, and it's inevitably I fuck up because I'm a human being, right? And I'll say it wrong, or I'll do something wrong, or he doesn't understand it, or I'm not articulating the way I should. And I'm just trying to be like, boom, boom, boom. And then, you know, that happens for so long. And then it's like, the conversation always comes like, you're always yelling at me, or you're always saying something to me and you never say something to sister. Like, what the fuck? And I'm like, you know, but the other day I had to like be like, I know, man. Like, I'm fucking sorry, but like, I don't want her yelling at me, and she's my fucking daughter, and I don't want her crying at me. But you are tough enough to deal with this shit, you know? And it's like, from a 10-year-old's perspective, it's like, you know, I know that he needs the love too. I know that he needs, you know, a hug. He needs the pat on the back, like, just for cultivating that. But like, I did have to tell him, like, dude, this world is brutal, man. Like, this world is not kind, and it will shake you off like a fucking flea, you know, if you let it. So it's like, I'm hard on you because, you know, and this, I'm not trying to be like chauvinistic or anything like that, but like, it can be at times harder on certain people than it can be on other people. And it's just like, I just want to make sure that I'm giving him, I'm sacrificing a little bit with him to make sure that he can do okay when he's on his own. And cause it's like, he's 10, like he's gone in a few years, you know? And then like,
that's great.
You know, people say, oh, it's 18. It's like, yeah, that's 8 more years. It's like, he's fucking 10. I remember when he was eating sand in a sandbox and shitting out sandpaper. Like, it happens in a moment. It happens so quick. And like, I'm trying to do everything I can. And like, you know, he's a great kid. Both my kids are, and it's not just me, like they're great human beings. And I hats off to my wife for that. Like, she's a good soul. She's a great person, far better than I think I will ever be as a human being. But, you know, I'm trying to kind of take the approach of like not being the bad guy, if that makes sense, but being the stern guy, because I feel like I have to do that at times to make sure that when he is 18 or 21, that if a blow comes out of nowhere and it's a fucking left hook, that he can, lick his wounds and hopefully get through it. Maybe it might knock him flat on his ass, and that's fine. But if he's got enough character about himself and who he is, that hopefully he can rebuild, because this world has knocked me on my ass so many times. And if I didn't have that grit and determination, I wouldn't have got back up, because there's no support mechanism. Like I love my mom and dad to death, but like they're not those people. And they may hear this, and that's fine. And I love you guys if you do hear this, but like my parents weren't those people to pull me out of hard times. Like I had to do it. So I feel like I owe it to my son and my daughter as well to be like, I'm preparing you for the hard times that not if they come, but that will for sure come in your life, And so I don't know.
And man, maybe you and Simone have set you guys up in a way where you guys can be a little bit more help to your kids than your parents were to you when it comes to hard times for them. Like I know every once in a while, when I first moved out, my parents were big helps with me. Even just sending me a few $100 every once in a while saved my ass sometimes.
Yeah.
But man, I'd say like the difference between the way you treat your son and the way you treat your daughter is like, the way that the world is hard on you as a man. And it's much less obvious to you how, or maybe it's like you feel comfortable because you've had this experience as a man teaching your son, like, this is how the world is going to be hard on you. And you can guide him in that, where you as a man have a much harder time guiding your daughter in the ways that, like, to prepare her for how the world is going to be hard on women. We don't have as much experience with that. It's harder for us as guys to guide women like that. And I almost feel like it's like, I don't know if it's like inappropriate, but it's just much harder to do. Like, like we're not women, so it's fucking hard.
Yeah. I don't think it's inappropriate, man. Like, I mean, people might hear this and be like, blah, 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 whatever. Fuck, whatever. Don't listen to the podcast. Yeah. It's my forum. Go fuck yourself. But like,
I don't have kids. I'm just saying.
No, I mean, but they're like, you're speaking a lot of truth, because that is real. Like, I have no fucking clue what it's like to grow up, especially in this day and age. And neither does my wife, growing up and being a female. And I don't have a clue what it's like growing up and being a male, but I can at least say, yeah, like you're right, man. Like I went through this. I'm pretty sure at some point in time, maybe here in the next couple of years, light bulb's going to fucking go off and things are going to change a little bit for you, both biologically and, from a holistic perspective. And it's like, I'm trying to just kind of, if I can, give a little bit of guidance. And I know that, everybody is always going to grow their wings and do their own thing. Like my son will be his own person at some point in time. He will inevitably try and fight his way out of the tribe, so to speak, right? From the very barbaric nature that we are as humans, he'll try and fight his way out and determine who he is as his own man. I'm dreading that time, but I'm also aware of that time. I know that it will happen. I just hope that I can be intellectual enough and confident in who I am as a person, and knowing that I'm his father, and that there could be some horrific things said to me from my son, because it's going to happen. Like every man goes through that shit. Mm-hmm. My dad dealt with it like a motherfucker. It wasn't good. It was, but I want to be better than what I experienced. So I'm it's all preparatory work, right? It's me working with him. Like, I want to be his friend, but I also know that he knows that I'm his father. And we have that division. There's times like today, like we ran 2.5 miles. We did drills for an hour and a half. We were friends on that field, on that pitch. We were friends. But when we got home, he did some shit. Bam. That's when it switches. He knows the difference. But at some point that differentiation is it's gonna meld, and he's gonna have that thing. Just like you, I mean, I don't know that you ever experienced this with your dad, but you at some point want to try and be your own man, right? And most of the times,
absolutely,
that's in challenging the dominant male. That's inherent in our core as a being, challenging that dominant male and push.
Yeah.
And I want to mentally prepare myself for that, because I don't want that to be the dividing factor, because I know that at 16 years old, this kid's going to say some shit. At 18 years old, he's going to say some shit. And at 35, life's going to fuck him up, and he's going to come back there. And I want to be the person he calls, not his friends, not his buddies, that's maybe not even his girlfriend. I want to be the guy that he calls when shit is real, real rough, because I didn't have that, like I didn't have that. Like there's no fucking question. I would not call my dad for a problem, not in a moment's, never. And I want to change. That is my one desire. If I can change that with my son and be like, I'm the guy, I'm here after all the shit that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. 16, 18, 19, 25. Yeah. You're fucking cool. You're at the bars. Oh, you're 30 and your life's fucked up a little bit. I want to make sure that he knows I'm the guy he can call, and without fail, I'm there for you. You might have fucked up, but you're not done. You're down, but you're not out. And so it's a weird deal as a father.
Yeah. And man, I'd say because for me, it doesn't necessarily have to cause a rift between that challenging time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to necessarily cause a rift. I definitely went out and did a bunch of shit that my parents, if they had more control over me, would not have wanted me to do. Fighting is a big one. Both my parents fucking hated that I was fighting, but they let me go my own way, and they let me communicate with them the entire time, and they weren't super judgmental. And in that, they let me go out and explore, and they let me become my own man without it ever creating a rift in the relationship between me and my parents. I'd say just two big things are let him when it's that time, and stay in loving communication with him.
Yeah.
Those are in my experience, what happened with me and my parents. Those are the two things that really saved us when I was trying to pull apart. Because you're right, that's a biological part, and he's supposed to do that. That's part of growing up.
Yeah. That's a hard, dude. It's you were 100% right. It's hard. It's hard to wrap your brain around that. Definitively that it's coming, because you like Kevin, you went through it with your parents. I think the way that you guys handle it, or your parents handled it, I wouldn't even say it was you, but the way that your parents handled it was exceptional to me, if outwardly looking at. But as a parent, thinking about those things, it's hard, because you're premeditating these these instances, and it doesn't have to, like you said, it doesn't have to be a fight, and you're 100% right, but you're premeditating the way that you're going to navigate these waters that haven't already even been breached, but mm-hmm. I'm trying to do it better, because again, I didn't have that, and I know that it's going to happen. I might have been the most glorified act of pushing your family away. In every aspect, I was if they were go left, I'm fuck you. I'm not going right. I'm going north, south, east, and west. And then I'll think about what you said and I'll do the opposite. It's I had to, for me, really define myself, beyond their control, beyond who they were. And some of that was good and bad. I fucked up a lot, and, we got through it, and I'm thankful that I did, but yeah, it's a weird concept to kind of put yourself into that. So, but anyways, enough about that. So, what's next on the docket, man? I know you're working, you're obviously coaching heavily. Are you coaching MMA specifically, or because the stuff I'm just seeing online is more some of it's MMA, but most of it's in the gym. You're still doing
mm-hmm.
the workout,
lifting, personal training.
Yeah, personal training. Yeah. So are you doing?
Yeah.
What's up next?
It's a lot of that, and it's personal training, working with people on their health habits, and then mixed martial arts. But really, my whole thing, what I really like in my job is getting to guide people from less healthy to more healthy and from less confident to more confident. And to me, like, I don't really care what the domain is. If it's MMA and you want to learn how to fight and that's what gets you in better shape and makes you more confident, that's awesome. I love walking that path with you. Or if you're an office worker downtown and you just feel weak, whether that's mentally or physically or whatever, and you just want to lift weights and get strong, and that's how you get in touch with yourself and you make that move from feeling weak about yourself. And I just say that because I've heard that a lot of times from people of like I felt weak physically and mentally and I couldn't stand up for myself. And now after like a year of training, I don't feel like that anymore. And I love seeing that development in people. So I don't know specifically like which way that I'm going to take it. Right now I'm just like looking for different opportunities and trying to kind of do it all. And eventually I'm going to have to kind of like, I'm going to get pulled in one direction or another. But right now, yeah, it's training a few fighters, teaching people mixed martial arts, and then a lot of just keeping people healthy and getting them stronger and more generally fit.
Are you partnered with a gym? Like, are you at like a DMA type of a scenario, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm at a gym called Balanced downtown. That's like the general fitness gym. And then I teach out of the Arena, which is the gym that I fought out of. Nice.
Cool. So is there a lot of obviously I don't know what your situation was like as far as training. Like, I know you were here with Durango Martial Arts and then you went there. I don't know how many gyms you moved to, but like, is there still a lot of the same core guys that when you were actively fighting or professionally fighting, like at the gym, like that, or, you know, cause it did seem like at Durango Martial Arts, like it seemed like you guys had like a group of guys that were actively not only cultivating each other, but other people that were coming into the fold. Like you were mixing them into the bag and like kind of elevating and growing them. But you guys were also actively, you know, professionally and, you know, amateur fighting at that point. Like, is that the same thing that you're seeing at the gym you're at now?
That's always what it's like, man.
Yeah.
There's always like a group of core guys that are doing the fighting and trying to like become pros. And those dudes are always broke and don't pay the bills in the gym. So then you have all the other people that come in and they're like doing it on weekends or doing it for fun, or maybe they're cops or in the military and they want to learn how to defend themselves and stuff like that. Or maybe like kickboxing for women is really big right now. Stuff like that. And that's what actually keeps the lights on. And most people are that. And then you have the small core group of kids that are actually trying to make a living fighting.
Yeah. So are you, I don't know if you feel comfortable with this, but like, I know that like fighter pay has been like super clickbaitable online right now. Like, it's like, if you're in the UFC, like if you fucking talk about it, Dana's going to squash your ass and you'll never see the light of day. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass here, but like, are you allowed, like, would you be willing to talk about like the purse that you made on your winning fights, or is that off topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's fine. Man, because me, like I was pro, but I wasn't like UFC level pro.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like I would make like a few grand, every time I fought. I'd make a couple grand in, show money, and then a couple grand in win money. And then sometimes you got a little bit of sponsorship money. But really, man, it was always like breaking even, because what you do is you take a bunch of time off work on the lead up to the fight so that you can train. And you have the entire week where you're cutting weight and shit. And that's always a brutal process. And so you miss a lot of work on the front end, and then you fight and you get paid. But it was always just kind of like backfilled the work that I missed.
Sure. I can imagine. So, I mean, anybody expecting to fight professionally, but not in the UFC, and like let's just say IFL, that's like $5,000, like on a win.
If you're high level there, if you're like fighting for belts and shit, yeah, you'll make about $5,000.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to fight, I think fighting is an awesome way to develop yourself, and you got to be really careful because like obviously there's the other side of it, which is like the brain damage and stuff like that, that almost inevitably comes with the sport. And so you got to walk that line because it's a great self-development tool and it'll cause you brain damage. So, you know, it doesn't matter how well you develop yourself if you're so brain damaged that you can't use anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to fight, it's good self-development, but unless you're willing to push it all the way to the tippy top of the UFC, you're not going to make an actual living off of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's good though. I mean, we touched on it earlier in the show, but I think that's good for people to know. I mean, because there's a lot of people out there, like, it's easy to watch. I think it's hyper easy to watch a fucking UFC fight and be like, I'm tough. I'm the toughest guy in my fucking town, dude. I can fucking do this.
Yeah.
And maybe you do get good. Maybe you win a couple amateur fights. Maybe you start in like a lower level pro compilation, you know, and you get there. But it's like, if you realistically want to make a living off this, you know, you got to be in the upper echelon, you know, and that's years and a lot of luck, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of luck. And I would say, like, unless you're really passionate about it, like, it's not like a very smart career choice because, like, you know, even if you're gifted physically, it's sort of like, all right, start fighting right now. You're going to have a lot of years of being broke and being in pain, getting the shit kicked out of you and maybe having to go to the hospital every once in a while. And then 10 years from now, maybe you'll start making money.
Dude, that's brutal, but that's real. I like hearing that. Cause that's, I think there's a lot of like glitter and glamour around the UFC and being even on the lowest card on the UFC. And like, but that's right now in the industry, like, it seems like that's the upper echelon. And maybe it's not. I don't know the industry as well as others. Like, you could probably maybe go fight for Bellator. I don't know, but like, I mean, the biggest cards in the world, like, it seems like, as far as like pay-per-view, not saying from a fighter pay stance, but like, if you want to make real money or real promotion, like, the UFC's kind of it, at least right now.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. But man, I think we overestimate how many people are motivated purely by money. Like, if people were motivated purely by money, nobody would be in the UFC. People that are attracted to fighting are much more attracted to things like glory and bravery and a chance to stand out and lead a different and unique life and all that shit over money, at least to begin with, because you have to, because there's not money in the beginning.
Gotcha. How many fights, in your opinion, would it take somebody to kind of go to that pro status or pro level?
That's different for everybody. And I always say it like this, is like, when you're in your school and you're sparring, it starts off very scary and it ticks on your fight or flight system a lot, and it takes your breath away and you go into panic and all that shit. And then after a while, you start getting very comfortable. And once you're comfortable, you start to really be able to, like, have easy access to your martial arts, because you don't have all that physiological fuckery getting in the way, all the panic and stuff like that. Yeah. And then when you go to fight, all that stuff kicks back up. And when you see people first start to fight, they have dog shit technique. Not because they have dog shit technique, but because they don't have access to that technique because they're in panic mode or they're scared or like whatever it is. And so you need to fight enough until fighting starts to feel a lot more like sparring. And you can go in there you're always going to have an adrenaline dump. It's always going to be nerve wracking. It's always going to be that stuff. But when you start walking in there and the fear, the adrenaline, the nerves, all that stuff starts to feel like familiar old friends and not scary new things that you don't know what to do with, and you start to get control over those things and your technique starts to shine through, that's when you can start to take it to the next level. If you're still being if you're still being overwhelmed by all those physiological things, don't take it to the next step yet.
Yeah. You think a lot of coaches push their students sooner than they should? I mean, I'm not saying from personal experience, but like just maybe talking to people in the industry.
I mean, you definitely hear stories like that. Stories of like people come in and they want to fight. So coaches are like, I'll get you a fight in 6 months. And that's just like not enough time to get prepared for for a fight, if you've never trained before or anything like that. So you see a lot of people, and the worst one that I've ever seen, actually, I don't know how long she was training for, but I was cornering another fighter, and this team came in, and there was a girl that was going to go fight on the card, and her coach was also her boyfriend. And so she had her little crew with her. And right before the fight, when everybody first got back into the locker room, she got into a fight with her boyfriend coach. And so he stopped talking to her. And so she was alone in the locker room, just scared shitless. First fight, her boyfriend coach was like not talking to her. He's off somewhere else. And so we ended up like wrapping her hands and walking her through the whole thing. And through the whole thing, we had figured out that like she had no idea what to expect. Like her coach had not prepared her for what was coming at all. She ended up getting the shit kicked out of her. But there's definite like preparation things that need to happen that will take you out of your comfort zone if you haven't practiced them. Even little things like performing in front of a crowd. Like if you've only ever sparred like the dudes in your school and you've never sparred in front of anybody that's like cheering or booing, or even like the hollow noise that the cage makes. Like we're used to practicing on firm floor, but then when you get on the cage, it feels hollow because it's hollow and it kind of like sounds like a drum. And all these things are little differences between what you experience in the gym and what the actual fight is like. And a good coach prepares you for all those little differences. Otherwise, the difference just kind of hits you in the face and they pull you out of your element.
What's your thoughts on somebody finding maybe, hopefully it's not a cost. I mean, it probably is a cost thing, but like, what are your thoughts on somebody finding, let's say that they maybe don't want to go pro, but they want to get into like a good gym. Like what are your thoughts on somebody finding a good gym? And I asked this because I think that maybe, I won't say that you guys were lucky, but there was a circle of you guys that were in DMA that maybe had some preliminary good coaching tactics, and all of you sort of went beyond that to go to bigger, better gyms, or maybe your career paths just kind of took you on that. But like if someone, because I can imagine that like if you, I keep going back to like Danny McBride. Do you know that comedian?
Yeah.
So like years ago, he made this like ridiculous fucking short film, and I forget who's in it, but it's like he's like a karate teacher, and clearly like is over exaggerating. Yes, fuck yes, it is. And like, but the whole concept, like he's over exaggerating the fact like he has no idea what he's doing. He's not a good coach. He's not a good teacher. And so it's like, how do you, in your experience, tell somebody to find like a good quality gym? Is it history of fighters? Is it recommendations? Is it reviews? Is it like, because like, I mean, and not every gym is probably created for every person. Right. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you've gone from maybe even now to like a few different gyms.
Yeah. I've been in a bunch of different gyms. And there's a lot of like, especially in the traditional martial arts world, there's a lot of fake gyms, like fake gurus, kind of like fake religion, like almost like cult people that will like, there's a lot of nonsense out there. But in MMA, I would say if the gym, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, at least brown belts teaching, and if their boxing coach hasn't produced won fights, then you need to do more research. Those are really the two big things. But those are two big things. And then another one is like, find a gym that you will go to. Because a problem or a thing that a lot of people do is they look for the best gym in the area and they find one that's like way too far. And so they go there half as much. You'll get a better result going to a gym that's closer that you can make it to every day than the best gym that you can only make it to once a week.
Gotcha.
So I would say find one that's like readily available that you can go to consistently. But if you have that available, if you have two gyms close to you, look and see how many jiu-jitsu brown and black belts there are. And then if you want to box too, look and see, like, look at their competition team and look at their records. And that's for like technical, how good they are. I'd also say go there and see how you vibe with them, see how kind they are. Because there's a lot of gyms that like, they do have that like over the top wannabe tough guy edge. And that's cool for some people, and it's not cool for everybody. And if you don't want to be around that, like there's plenty of gyms that you can really learn good martial arts and really learn how to fight. And you don't have to engage in that tough guy bravado shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It can seem like that's probably, I wouldn't, yeah, again, I'm speaking out of my ass, Kev, but it would seem like that might be fairly prevalent in this industry, you know, quote unquote, like, maybe not. Maybe maybe that's like what you see on camera, right? Like everybody's this tough guy, and like the bravado is like just massive across this. So,
well, man, I'd say like in a competition setting, intimidation is part of the strategy. Like you can't the way that you can play off of somebody else's mentality by intimidating them and starting to put fear into them before this fight even starts. Like that's all tactics, and it's all money-making tactics. Like the dudes that get paid the most talk the most, like Conor McGregor. He's an awesome shit talker. He puts the fear of God into his opponents, and he gets paid more for it. So all of that is like conscious tactics, and I don't hold anything against anybody for using those tactics. It's how they treat you in the gym. And in the gym, there is some of that, but mostly in my experience, I found that really training martial arts for a long time tempers people out of that attitude more than it enforces it. Because like I was saying earlier, the first thing that you have to do is like you have to develop an ego that's okay with getting smashed 1,000 times before it starts to win. Yeah. And that really humbles you. And so by the time you're starting to win, you're starting to get good, you've already been humbled to the point where you're not cocky anymore. And I think cockiness and confidence present themselves different. Mm-hmm. Where cockiness is a lot of shit talking, and it's a lot of bravado, and it's a lot of all that stuff. And real confidence normally doesn't present itself like that. Real confidence is generally much kinder than cockiness is.
You think, from your experience, like the false bravado, like the act, the big money selling tactics, is that all for show? Like when you get in the gym, do you think a lot of these like top guys are like real deal? Like they're down to ground and pound. They're a real human being, so to speak, or you think they can flip that switch and sell tickets?
I think it's both. I think, you know, Conor McGregor, when he's shit talking in front of the camera, that's a part of who he actually is. And something that people really respond to with him is that that's an honest expression of himself. You know, other people have tried to do it he's done, and it rings false. It rings like a copycat because it's not their true expression. It's not really part of themselves. They're trying to copy somebody else's true expression. And when you see people who are really successful and stuff like that, it's almost always a genuine expression of at least part of who they really are. But that doesn't mean that he can't be soft and kind and friendly and all that stuff when he's in a different situation. Sure. You know, people can be lots of different things in lots of different situations, and it's all really them.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's like, it's, you know, a complete outsider looking in. It's like, you know, what's behind the curtain? You know what I mean? It's like, that's awesome. Well, Kevin, man, thank you so much for being on, dude. This has been an absolute joy. I'm glad you took some time to hop on here, and hopefully somebody can hear this episode and truly resonate with it if they're looking to or aspiring to become a fighter, or if they want to get into jiu-jitsu or just get into a gym. I think that there's a lot of people out there. It's a very topical scenario right now, and I really appreciate you coming on here and just being open and honest and shedding some real life nicks and dings and some bruises and broken arm stories. And I think it's going to be good, man. I think this will be a great episode.
Good. No problem, man. And I would say just real quick, like, I would encourage almost everybody to do some martial arts, to do a little bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, to learn how to box, to learn how to handle themselves. You don't have to go crazy with it. And it's not like you have to pick it as a career path or just leave it alone. Man, I have this story. Like I said earlier, Ryan's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu brown belt, and he's had a couple amateur fights, but really he's a good jiu-jitsu player. And he was working at this little restaurant when he was up in Spokane, Washington. And one day this dude walked in. He was a homeless guy, and he was distraught. He was crying, and he was waving around a piece of saw. And it was like the restaurant was crowded, so he was waving it around at people, and he wasn't threatening anybody directly. And so everybody in that moment, they wanted to be kind to this man because he was obviously a human in a lot of pain. But they also wanted to be assertive with him, and they wanted to get him out of the restaurant because on the other hand, he was a crazy homeless dude waving a weapon around. But they couldn't act on it because they had no self-confidence in that scenario. So what some people did was they pretended that they didn't see it, and some other people just like left and went to the back room. And Ryan went up to the guy, and he introduced himself, and he put his arm on his shoulder, and he asked him what was wrong. And while the guy was talking, he slowly, gently walked him outside. And he was calm and kind and assertive with this man, which is what everybody wanted to do, but they weren't brave enough in that scenario to act out their kindness. And it was only Ryan's ability to actually really handle himself that allowed him access to actually act out his kindness. And I think it's easy to be kind when everybody else is around you being kind, but learning how to handle yourself and learning how to fight and do some martial arts and stuff like that, it really helps you stay kind and not get triggered and act from a place of panic when shit's going down around you. And that might only happen a couple times in your life, but you get to be really impactful in those times. So yeah, I'd encourage everybody to do a little bit of martial arts. I think it's really helped me. It's really helped everybody else that I've seen take it on.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, absolutely. So, if anybody wants to reach out and kind of, if they hear this and they resonate and they want to touch base with you directly, I mean, do you have, a social Instagram handle or something like that you want to plug or?
Yeah, I'm going to change it eventually because it was Mr. Nice Guy MMA, and now I'm not fighting anymore. So right now it's just Kevin Duffy Wirth, I think, on Instagram. That's really the only thing that I use.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, well, awesome, man. Again, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure, to be honest with you, man. I appreciate you being on. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I'm pumped that you're doing this. And even if it's just so that I got to hang out and talk with you for an hour and a half, man, it's been too long.
Yeah, no, it's been a better part of a decade. So yeah, again, It's a little bit selfish, but it allowed us to talk shop and chop it up for a while. So I appreciate you, Kevin.
Heck yeah.
Have you ever felt? Are you listening? Damn.